How a dinosaur obsession took down an arrogant teacher. My 9-year-old son, Toby, breathes dinosaurs. Ever since he was 4, he's been completely obsessed with paleontology. Last year, he even met a famous curator at the Field Museum who gave Toby a signed sketch of a fully feathered, chicken-sized velociraptor. Toby cherished that sketch until he met his third grade teacher, Mrs. Higgins. One Tuesday, Mrs. Higgins was teaching a unit on prehistoric life. She confidently told the class that velociraptors were giant scaly reptiles that stood over 6 feet tall. Toby politely raised his hand. He explained that modern science proved they were actually quite small and covered in feathers, almost like giant turkeys. Mrs. Higgins did not like being corrected. She completely snapped, telling Toby to stop disrupting her class with his made-up fairy tales. The next day, Toby brought in his signed sketch to prove it. Instead of looking at the evidence, she confiscated his prized possession, locked it in her desk, and made him write. The textbook is always right, 50 times on the chalkboard. He came home in tears. I was livid. I emailed her immediately, but she replied that she had been teaching the exact same curriculum for 25 years, and she certainly didn't need a parent questioning her authority. So, I didn't question her. I called my brother, Mark. Mark just so happens to be a senior vertebrate paleontologist. 3 days later, Mark and I walked right into Mrs. Higgins' classroom carrying a massive, highly detailed replica of a feathered raptor fossil. The look on her face was priceless. Mark enthusiastically introduced himself and offered to give a surprise guest lecture that the principal had happily approved. Mrs. Higgins sat there turning bright red as Mark systematically dismantled every outdated fact she had just taught. He passed around real fossil casts and explained how true science is always updating. Right in front of the principal, Mark politely asked Mrs. Higgins for Toby's sketchback. She practically shoved it at him, her face flushed with utter embarrassment. Mark then smiled, pulled out a VIP behind-the-scenes museum pass, and handed it to Toby. Mrs. Higgins was forced to take a mandatory science update seminar, and Toby became an absolute school legend.